Okay, Johannes is bringing us up to the next point, the 3 channels and 32-bit. Okay, this is actually real simple, and I should show you this now. I've already exported this guy. I'm going to go into 3 channels, and I'm going to say create, and I'm going to clone that, and I'm going to export this guy as a 3 channel. Displacement as a TIFF, 3 channel. Okay, I'm also going to turn that, I'm going to turn that off. I don't want, well, mental rate needs, that's right. And then 32-bit. Okay, create displacement map. And I'm going to clone that. And export that. So, and this is 3 channel, 32-bit. Do I have Photoshop? Yes. Okay, it's brought in the TIFF. Let's see if it brings in the other ones. I think it's going to have to ask me some questions. No, it doesn't want to do it all. Okay, so it brought in that one. Let's bring in the 3 channel. And let's bring in the 32-bit. First, to answer Johannes's question, 3 channel, it is just color. So ZBrush by default creates a grayscale image, so that means that it is single channel grayscale and it is 16-bit, and that is of course designed to save on file size. Okay, a lot of programs like Maya, they don't care about file size per se. They go through and read it anyways. And what they need is something that has more channels. Well, I don't know why this doesn't have 3 channels, but it should, where'd it go? We should be looking at RG and B. And then 32-bit, still 16. Let's check our mode here. Yeah, this should be 32-bit. So in essence, even though I'm not able to show it right now, RG and B, and then here we're getting the same thing, RG and B, but 16-bit. Okay, if it's not coming out, you know, export it, get it into Maya, and if it's not behaving correctly, they're just not exporting it correctly. I mean, look, that says depth of 16. Okay, and 32-bit, this is what the issue is. Sorry about that, guys. This was moved. So let me go in here. Multi-map exporter. This is the way that you used to render out RGB and 32-bit maps. Okay, and there's a reason why you would use multi-map exporter as opposed to ZBrush. Like for example, you saw the problem we ran into. We created a displacement map. Even with these settings, it still wasn't doing it. And the reason why, it's pretty simple, but it's confusing. The reason why we just encountered that problem was because alphas inside of ZBrush only speak grayscale and 16-bit. That's it. So even though we had 32-bit on, it said, well, sorry, I only speak 16-bit. It created a 16-bit. I only speak grayscale. It created a grayscale. So there's this block. How do I get 3 channels and 32-bit out? That's where this next button is here. So you've got your 3 channels, you've got your 32-bit. Instead of it going here, and then from here to alpha, and then from alpha to your program, we're just going to go and say, go to this create export, and then it skips ZBrush entirely and goes outside of ZBrush. So create and export maps. Let's just see if that works. And I'm going to just go right over the top of that one. Okay, it's writing the map, and it's asking if you want to export the base mesh. Isn't that so polite? Now let's go into Photoshop. And I'm going to say, close this. And let's see if we can bring that one in and if that solved our problem. And it did. I know right away because it's asking me what color space do I want to work with. Okay. So I am now with a 32-bit 3-channel. I have 3 colors here, and we've got a 32-bit depth happening, which now means also that we might need to come in and say adjust our exposure. And in exposure, you do things like, it's not exposure I really want to set. Oh, come on. It's gamma. I think it's 0.66. Something around that. So we dial that down, the gamma that is. Okay, Ryan, let's see. A couple of questions. Donna, have they fixed the way it writes TIFFs when it does this? Donna, I remember a couple of issues, so I need a little bit more information. My understanding is that they've put a lot of work into this create and export here, which was pulled, as I said, from the multi-map exporter. So they have put some work in there and tested it. If there are issues, there could still be a debate, and I just hate to push this back. It's like blaming the victim. But there could still be a debate about whether it's Maya's problem or ZBrush's problem. And I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to say, you know, there's still debate there. Okay, Ryan is saying, I was told Photoshop can open 32-bit displacements but can't save it. I do believe, Ryan, that was earlier versions of Photoshop. I'm pretty sure it covers 32-bit now. But there are issues with 32 bits inside of Photoshop that result from basically what we just did with gamma and also the color space. So the values can shift. So there are some concerns about taking a 32-bit map into Photoshop because you're probably already aware of this, but Photoshop changes the values of an image to look better on your screen. So they have a mechanism in there where they will brighten and darken, or yeah, they'll lighten or darken the values, the pixel values of your image to kind of make it look better on the screen or adjust for that. That's if I remember the problem correctly. When you save it, some of that was transferred in and it was altered, which was obviously not bad. And Kathleen says anything above 8 bits, you just got to watch it. Ryan, what's the purpose of 32 bits? Well, the purpose of 32-bit actually is not when you need to edit inside of Photoshop. The purpose of 32 bits is to get real-world units in your displacement map. That's the long and the short of it. This has successes and it has failures. But in general, if you are rendering for, let's say, a VFX pipeline and you've got the computers, people will tend to move towards 32-bit. The issue with using 32-bit maps, though, guys, is file size. And I'll point that out. I mean, it's really easy. I'll show you right now. 32-bit maps are huge. That's the 32-bit map. That's the 16-bit map. You're talking, what, is that 5 times? Almost 6 times larger? Now, if you can imagine, in terms of a, let's say, a full character pipeline in production, for some of these characters, you know, you've got an ogre, you've got his head, You got some gnarly knees. He's got his little club. Okay. You're going to have, what, a 4K map on the head. You might have a 4K map over here. You might have a 4K map that covers, you know, this whole quadrant. Who knows? But you can imagine it's not just that one map, right? You know, it's a specular map. It's a diffuse map. It's a displacement map. There's also probably a normal map. Most places, as I understand it now, will combine displacement and normal. Displacement's expensive. And then they've got, like, let's say some kind of SSS map. And then they've got all the rendering effects on top of that. And, you know, things get quite complicated. So they're dealing with a lot at render time. And so 32-bit displacement maps can really eat up stuff. And yeah, as Ryan says, there is inside of Maya and I think other apps a .map format, which is kind of like a cached format, so to speak. It's just easier for Maya to read it. But they have utilities that allow you to do that. It's pretty simple. I used to do that all the time. Johannes, in terms of quality, would you say 32-bit is really necessary for most circumstances? Johannes, I would not say 32-bit is necessary. And I think that's been fairly proven, although, to be honest, I don't know exactly what they're doing with the latest films. But you can get really fantastic results with a combination of displacement and normal, and you know, a combination of 16 and 32. Obviously, 32 is the best, but it's another idea of the brute force versus the intelligent approach. And yes, as Ed points out, game production is kind of a whole different ball of wax. There's no way you're going to get into 32-bit in most games, you know, unless I'm missing some super-powered processor out there. But in time, you will. And vector displacements, with that coming up, and real-time rendering of vector displacements, you're talking 5 years, you know, it should be quite interesting. Okay, so that was a little sense. I've created the displacement maps. Let's get ourselves over into Maya and just start talking the language.